Welcome back, everyone, to Tale Talk, where we continue the great conversation. Today on First Impressions, we have Deonte back with us for some more One Piece. Last time, we did not get through all that we were supposed to, so here we're back again at Little Garden. How you doing, Deonte?
I am doing good. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about Little Garden and get into the meat and bones of how this story goes and ends. So I'm ready.
Awesome, let's do it. Last time we did a little bit of character analysis. We talked about Usopp with the giants and a horizontal power structure that we see in the Straw Hats, as opposed to some other ones, the Baroque Works showing up. So I guess in where we are going down our story, we're kind of just at things starting to happen. Mr. 3 is plotting poisoning giants and making moves.
Yeah.
So.
We didn't even get into the Baroque Works getting to confront the Straw Hat Pirates yet.
Yeah, I mean, how did you feel about them fighting, and was it an interesting fight to you? I think kind of Mr. 3's our main villain, right? Luffy, he's the guy Luffy punches to
to win. Yeah, he's kind of the guy to punch in every island. This is his job. I think what's interesting about this is Luffy's, I guess, code of conduct when it comes to confrontation, because he talks to Vivi about this whole situation with the giants, and Vivi's like, "Why are you guys fighting?" And Luffy's like, "You don't interrupt a fight. You don't understand. You don't stop them." He tells Vivi at least twice, very explicitly, "Do not stop the giants from fighting." And then the giant gets poisoned by, I can't tell which one it is, the exploding booger guy or Mr. 3. I think it maybe is both of them together. I think it's the exploding booger guy. The one giant that Luffy and Vivi know drinks it, it explodes, and then the mountain goes off, and it's time for him to get up and go fight. And Luffy tries to stop him. You know what I mean? Like, Luffy literally gum headbutts this giant down for the count, and is even trying to tell him, like, "Hey, don't go," which is this weird contradiction of, like, Vivi telling him not to go, and Luffy's like, "You don't get to do that," but Luffy feels like he can. I didn't like that for his character. But then the giant puts his giant rock on Luffy, so Luffy can't go anywhere, and then Baroque Works comes out, and Baroque Works just starts whooping on these people. Like, exploding guy is kicking people with explosions, including just kicking Luffy in the face over and over with his exploding boot. So it felt like a very hopeless situation where it's like, Luffy can't get out from under this rock. All he's got is Vivi, who is not going to be able to take on these two on her own, and she doesn't. And so I think it very much sets up this hopeless situation where Luffy really shows how desperate he is to get into things. Like, he is tearing himself apart, almost literally tearing himself apart, trying to stretch himself out from under the boulder. But one difference that I see between him and, like, Usopp, who hops on the giant bird thing and is running around, is Usopp uses resourcefulness to survive. Luffy just tries to run headfirst at whatever the problem is and punch it out, even if that's not helpful. And I think it was consistent with his character to do that. You know what I mean? It was consistent for Luffy's character to be stuck under this rock and just try to brute force his way forward. It gets them into some pretty bad, sticky situations as the fight progresses, and as Mr. 3 comes out with this whole wax power that he has and starts imprisoning Zoro and Vivi and Nami. But Luffy, for the entire combat, is just, I'm going to punch things as hard as I can, and I'm going to keep trying to punch things as hard as I can. And it doesn't work for him when he's stuck under the rock. It doesn't work for him when he's up against the painter girl. It keeps not working for him until it suddenly does. You know what I mean? but it's his
Yeah,
friends kind of making the path clear for him to do that.
that's definitely his strategy is always kind of punch, headbutt, just punch your way out of it. Usopp, that's really good. That's a really insightful take on Usopp. Because, again, it's been a while since I've gone through the whole series, but if I remember correctly, everyone powers up throughout the show, but Usopp and Nami both don't power up in, like, I can punch you harder ways. They power up in other ways, like Usopp gets more tricky ways to be able to handle opponents and more powerful materials to make his attacks with. And so it's not actually like he just powers up in the traditional anime sense. It's definitely much more of a clever kind of power up, which I oftentimes appreciate a lot more in any form of media. Is don't get me wrong, I'm a Dragon Ball Z fan. I love screaming power. I can destroy 20 planets now.
Yeah.
There's something that it tickles a good spot in my heart of just like, I don't know. It's not super complex, but not everything has to be. This kind of points to something deeper that I thought about with stories, that a good story almost needs to know itself and stay in its lane. Not to like say that in a bad way, but if you have, a 2000s comedy with, I'm trying to think of some. If you have a Will Ferrell comedy, right? You don't want that to touch on the difficult themes of capitalism versus communism, and like it. If you do that, it's not going to do it right. And a perfect example that I have of this is, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, not Freddy Fazbear. Oh my gosh.
Five Nights at Freddy?
No, it's a Nick Cage movie. That's basically a knockoff of Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh my gosh, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. I'm not going to look it up right now. But basically, there's this Nick Cage movie where he doesn't say a single word throughout the entire thing.
Oh.
Not a single line. It's just a silly kind of horror movie. Doesn't take itself seriously at all. I love that movie. That's a great movie. But it wasn't trying to be anything more than it was. So bringing that back to this, it's like, I oftentimes do enjoy the being able to outthink your opponent and getting cleverer in that sense as a power-up. I think it's interesting that One Piece manages to have both of those in its universe.
That's a good point. I mean, I don't know all the upgrades and power-ups and whatnot that are coming, but I think one big thing that's been a struggle in the community, and Dragon Ball Z is kind of like the forefather of it. You know what I mean? Like, there are many generations of anime, but the Dragon Ball Z era is kind of this standard that everyone is like, Dragon Ball Z is what really brought anime to the West. That Dragon Ball Z era had like Sailor Moon in it. And like some people include like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Of like early 90s brought that over. And Dragon Ball Z's big legacy that it brought forward is like the Super Saiyan transformation. That it brought fighting martial arts to the forefront. The downside of that is that there is power scaling, and people make entire YouTube careers off of being power scalers. And what does that mean? To be universal buster, to be planetary, to be meteor size, to be continent, blah, 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 blah. But the issue is once you start power scaling, once you can quantify and measure power, you now run into the issue of everything has to be measured. And there is a point where it no longer becomes relevant. If I can blow up 500 suns or 5,000 suns, I'm going to be able to punch whoever I want in the face, essentially. It doesn't really matter anymore. The stakes are lost when it's all down to numbers and it gets too big. So I like that Usopp is not trying to be durable like Sanji. He's not trying to be powerful like Zoro. He knows who he is, and similar to what you're saying, he knows his lane and he's staying in it. And it's not bad to know your lane and to be in it as long as you properly know your lane. Because knowing your lane is not bad. Knowing your lane is just knowing your strengths and your weaknesses and what you're about and getting into it. And I like the fact that Zoro and Sanji and Luffy are these superheroes brought to life, but on the same team, Nami and Usopp exist. And they say, we deal with the other side of power, which is what are the constraints? What are the limitations? And I'm going to play within that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like this guy can literally cut a mountain in half. How am I, as a normal human, going to take down this person?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll shoot a spicy ball into his mouth.
Here's a boom, little rubber band, little slingshot. But I think that's actually more important to have a character like Usopp, because it reminds me of like, and I don't mean this as a one-to-one comparison, but it reminds me of a character kind of like Rock Lee in the Naruto universe, where it's like, hey, what are all the ninjas doing in at this point when we're getting to the, you know, the middle area of Naruto? They are dropping meteors, they're controlling giant mech suits, they're blowing up mountains by unsheathing their swords. And Rock Lee says, I have a left hook and a right hook. And Rock Lee is different than Usopp in the sense of, with his limitation, he keeps up. But it reminds me of this sense of there is an importance to having characters that are not just these figures like everyone else. It's the everyman. It's a person who can look at this all and look at the audience and be like, isn't this ridiculous? Isn't this crazy? I'm your personification. So I like that Usopp in this fight is just looking to be resourceful. He shoots Luffy's back, literally, to get the paint off of his back to unhypnotize him. He's running around and just trying his best to survive. And he has a different strategy than everyone else. Like, the Baroque Works strategy is kill the giants, kill the Straw Hats, collect the bounty. They have a clear goal. Luffy's goal is punch the guys I don't like. He has an even more clear goal. But Usopp's goal is survive and get my friends out of danger. He is fighting a very different war. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that allows him to operate and move differently. And therefore, it's okay for him. He's like, I'm okay running away, because my end goal is to make sure that everyone gets out of this. So I'm okay running away into the forest and then coming back. That's fine.
I think you're right on that, everyman. It's important to have that and like a realistic, somewhat realistic. It's still kind of a cartoon, but like,
yeah, it's still an anime
person who is not a god and indestructible in there, but it's even cooler that he's like managing to be effective. He's not just sitting there in the corner cowering. He's doing stuff. He's part of the team. And yeah, he's not going to punch someone into oblivion, but he'll give you the opportunity to. He'll save your butt still, you know?
Yeah. And it relies and kind of leans into the factor of everyone has an important role. It's not just the invincible guys out in the front, Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy. If it wasn't for Usopp, Luffy would be hypnotized and done for. And it leans into everyone has a role, everyone has a purpose. Usopp's purpose is to say there's a space for everyone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone would be dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because they all would have gotten frozen. Zoro would be immortalized with his hand up.
In a cool pose.
Cool pose.
I did want to touch on this as well. Something that I had talked to you about before recording was when the giant put the rock on Luffy and then Luffy wasn't able to help his friends when the fight started. That was the most endeared I had ever been to Luffy. As you know, I don't like Luffy. I don't like him at all. But the moment that rock was placed on him and then the giant walked away and then Baroque Works came out and was like, ha ha ha, it's time for us to be evil. And Luffy could not physically help his friends. He became this like almost deranged, neurotic creature who had the opposite of a fight or flight response. Well, he had a fight response. He had a pure fight response. And it kind of made me wonder, like, what happens when Luffy can't do a thing? What happens when Luffy can't protect his friends? Because
so excited.
your face right now.
Sorry.
It sounds like I'm hitting on something.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'll totally
Nobody
not
tell
worry.
him.
But I think the thing about Luffy is, so far from my perspective, I'm like, Luffy is a Deus Ex Machina incarnate. If he wants something, everyone bends around him to give it to him. If he believes something, it's always the right thing, regardless of the thought process. It's just Luffy's always right, and it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like it has not been earned yet that Luffy be right. But in that moment, Luffy couldn't get up and punch someone, and he went feral. And part of me was like, is this like a spoiled child not getting his way? Because at first, that's how I felt. I was like, oh, this is a spoiled child for the very first time not getting his way. But then I was like, that's not what the author wants me to believe. Like, I don't think the author wants me to think that Luffy has this super cush life where everything's handed to him. I don't think that's what the narrative is trying to point to. But at first I felt that way, and then I was just trying to watch with a more open mind, and I was like, no, this is Luffy who works hard for what he gets, finally facing a roadblock that he cannot punch his way through. And he does not have the emotional, mental, or intellectual tools to deal with this. His friends are getting destroyed in front of him, lit on fire, exploded, and he can't punch the people to make them stop. This is not a spoiled child not getting his way. This is someone with the tools of a child, unable to stop a horror in front of them, and they don't know what else to do. And in that moment, I was like, I kind of feel bad for Luffy. But I'm also kind of glad it happened, because I'm like, good. What are you going to do when the next time you don't get a Deus Ex Machina to get you out of this? What happens if you can't be there for your friends? What happens if you're not strong enough to punch through someone? How do you handle it? Because so far you handle it like an animal. And I mean that in all of the ways possible. So it was just a little something that I had to circle back to.
That's good. Yeah, he goes feral. I want to add on to that a little bit. Like, yeah, it's not just a spoiled child not getting his way, because we've seen that with Luffy. Mm-hmm. And yes, he does have that, but it's much more comical. He's not going to freaking, gum rocket Sanji if he doesn't give him a cookie.
Yeah. He'll just pout.
He'll pout. He'll be sad. He'll cry about it. He might try and sneak it anyways. But that's Luffy, spoiled child, not getting what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
But this is more so like Luffy is a very black and white character, right? Like, person in general. He knows what he wants, and he's going to go for it. And he wants other people to know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
What he wants is to be king of the pirates, yes. But there's a lot that's like added on to that. He wants a crew that's like a family to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he has that, and he's building that, and he is achieving his dream as we speak. He's, going after it. He's doing it. And like, here is his dream being destroyed in front of him, and he can't stop it.
Yeah.
He needs his crew. He loves his crew. He loves his friends, and he can't. Like, yeah, his tool is punch it, and he can't.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially what you said of like, he wants a crew that's like a family. That made me kind of think, who like everyone's family. Nami's situation is she has like an adopted mom and adopted sister. Usopp's dad is a pirate, and his mom, the whole village situation is like, Usopp, I think, is the only one who we biologically know and have seen the family of. Like, Nami, we saw her adopted sister in a sense. Sanji, we know he like was adopted into the chef pirate ship. So he had like an adopted dad. Zoro, I don't think we know anything. Luffy, we don't know anything. So I'm kind of like, how old are these characters? Are these children? Are they representative of teenagers? Are they adults?
I think, don't quote me on this, everyone. I think Luffy is 16.
Quote him directly. He said Luffy is 16 years old.
I believe so at this point.
Yeah, how, like, we saw a little bit of a flashback of like Luffy at the bar when he was a kid, but I don't remember his dad being there. So I'm like, I guess he's an orphan or something. Terrible orphan system if he just walked away. You know, like no one's after. There is a, I'm trying to understand, is this just 90s being like, we don't really care about parents. That's not the story we're telling. Or if there is something to the fact that Luffy is surrounded by people who don't have families so deeply. You know what I mean?
Maybe. That's curious. I wonder what
Don't
all
look
of their
at
families are like.
Don't look at me like that. don't do that.
Okay, I'm sorry. We do eventually get into some family stuff for many of the crew, and I'm not going to spoil it because a lot of that is very important in their character arcs. So you're asking some good questions.
Thank you. The author made it easy.
Man, where did we go from? Oh yeah. We were talking Luffy under the rock. That was the most endearing you've had for him, and you like to see Luffy growing from his failures and being able to, like, how do you react when it's not all happy-go-lucky? Because a lot of One Piece is very much, you know, happy-go-lucky. We're on the ship, we're eating food, we're talking, we're bickering, but it's like friend bickering. And then this is kind of one of the bigger moments where he has to face some adversary, or not adversary. There's
adversity.
A word I'm looking for. Adversity. Thank you. Yeah. So glad you could read my mind there.
Thank you. I'm here for you. But yeah, I mean, in every other situation, Luffy's been pretty in control. It's really him going to an island, meeting the person, and then he's just standing there waiting for them to ask for help. And then when they do, he punches the problem away. This is the first time where it's not Luffy waiting for the giants to be like, Luffy, help us. He's actually out of control and not the guy who's just waiting to save everyone else. You know what I mean? So that's what made this one feel different.
And that's why the Grand Line's a different level, you know?
Yeah.
Because all of that was before they entered the Grand Line. So he was overpowered for everything. He could punch all of his problems, but now things are getting serious.
Yeah, he's on the other side of the Grand Line. It shows a difference of power. It feels different. That's a really good point. I kind of forgot. That's been like the marker.
Yeah, it's where pirate. I mean, I don't know what you remember. Again, long time that we've had separation between our episodes, but like they really set up that the Grand Line is like a place where a lot of pirates won't even go.
Yeah,
like, you go there and you die. And we see we've seen crews that like have been completely destroyed when entering the Grand Line and not able to handle it at all. And so it is showing a little bit more adversity, and this is pretty early into being in the Grand Line. So I'm glad you saw that, and glad you pointed that out. Anything else with any of the other people? Any other fights with Booger Boy or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking through. The fight seemed pretty simple. Of the wax situation of Nami, Vivi, and Zoro being stuck on top of the cake. Zoro tries to cut his legs off. that man, Zoro is like, oh, I'll just cut my legs off and then I'll fight him. And then he doesn't get to cut his legs off. It's not that he doesn't try. I think it's a little bit of he never neglected leg day, so his legs were too strong. And also Usopp came in, you know, Luffy comes in, everyone comes in to kind of be like, don't worry about that, we'll fix it. So Zoro's like, oh, okay. But that was kind of funny to me of like, it wasn't like Zoro mentioned like, oh, I'll just cut my legs off and go down there. And everyone's like, what, Zoro? Ha, don't do that. Joke comedy thing. Like, no, Zoro's down to like, I'll decapitate myself. I'll
Deload
maim
myself.
myself. I'll cut off whatever. Yeah, decapitate. I'll just cut my head off. The fact that he's like, I'll go to that extreme, very nonchalant, very casual. I'm like, eh, that man is trying. That man is being portrayed as not just like I want to look tough, but like I am tough. And it's not about me being tough. It's about a thing needs to happen, so I'm going to make it happen because I'm the one here who can make it happen. I'll do it.
Yeah, very
I
much
kind of
so.
liked
It's
that.
very. It's like, and it's also almost like a nonchalant toughness. That's kind of cool about it. It's not like, oh, I'm the tough guy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to swim through some nails. Okay.
Yeah. It's not him being like, I'm the only one here who can cut my own legs off because I'm the only one strong enough. He's just like, oh, we need to punch that guy down there and I can't get down there with my legs? Okay. I'll not have legs then. Yeah, I'll just not have legs. And the fact that
worked good for this long, but
yeah, they were fine for now. But the fact that the giant got motivated by that too leans into kind of the ending of this island. You know what I mean? How this giant looked at Zorro and was reinvigorated, and it kind of sparked some memories and some feelings and got him back up and all that. I think the fight was fine, but I think the more interesting part was actually Sanji and what he was doing this whole time. Because he does not get into this fight at all.
That's right.
He doesn't kick anybody in this fight. He's off at a little wax base that Mr. 3, the wax guy, had as his like home base or whatever, and he intercepts a call accidentally from Mr. Zero.
Mr. Zero.
Yeah, I thought that was the more interesting kind of like takeaway from this island for them. Like the thing that really is going to track forward and matter. You know what I mean? Like it's cool that they punched Mr. 3 and stuff. Like love that. Side note, no, I don't. Sorry. I'm not even doing this for a bit. I really just genuinely mean this. When Luffy is chasing down Mr. 3, the wax guy, and then he gets into the open clear field where there's a bunch of Mr. 3s, because it's a bunch of like wax clones, whatever. And he's like, haha, you'll never be able to find me now. And Luffy just immediately kicks the right one. He just immediately kicks the correct guy. And that Mr. 3 is like, how'd you know? And Luffy's like, instinct. I felt that kick personally. I was like, no, you don't deserve, like, you didn't deserve, you know what, like, alternatives. You weren't melting because you're in a super jungle hot forest and it's wax. Luffy could have been like, all of these ones are starting to melt. You're not melting. Didn't do that. He's just like intuition. There are so many other ways.
Look, I gotta defend my boy a little bit here.
Yeah,
We all know Luffy's a little slow. So there's a chance that there were those things happening just very, very deep. So deep he didn't realize it. So instinct.
Oh, that's what he calls instinct. Okay, yeah.
He's like, I just knew, and it's like there's dust all over him. He's not pristine or whatever. And he's like, I don't know. I just know things.
Yeah, I just know it's you. I just feel it. Honestly, I feel like that's probably the excuse. Like
that's my excuse.
You know what? Like I feel like that's the proper headcanon of Luffy is such a combat genius that he observes these things and just knows it without being able to verbalize it. But when he was like instincts, I was like, no, no, thank you. No, thank you. We're good. But I do think, I think
that's definitely a missed opportunity for a joke. There is like having it visually very obvious what the difference is.
Yeah.
And then he's like, instinct, I just feel it in my gut.
Yep.
But like have him genuinely not understand why he could tell.
Yeah. Like he's too dumb for his own good. I think that would have been hilarious. And I would have totally been like, that's a good slide by. Like Luffy can see the dirty, dusty one punch them, calls it instinct. He doesn't understand. I think that would be funny. And that would help to explain some things in the future, all that jazz. I do think that's a headcanon, but I just remember that one stuck out to me.
Look, valid criticism. I'm not I do have a deep love for One Piece, and I think it's one of the greatest stories, if not the greatest story ever told. But that
Crazy.
doesn't mean every story in it is told well.
That is fair. And I think I'm coming in with a pretty critical lens, granted, because you have said that phrase multiple times, that it is the greatest story ever told, that it's amazing, all this great high praise. So I'm coming in like, yeah, I need to see this hit the bar. I need to see this coming in bench pressing. But granted, like we talked about last week, in the last episode, that idea of there is so much setup that needs to happen that we're just setting up so much. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of setup, and I'm like, where's this amazing filet mignon that you're talking about? And it's like, we're at the market getting the ingredients still. We need to get the best ingredients. It's going to take time.
Yeah, and I kind of want to walk it back a little
No,
bit.
no.
Story ever. No.
Hold a strong
Hear
stance.
me out. Not that it isn't, but I feel like saying so does a disservice to those who haven't seen it. Because you have to recognize that a lot of this is set up for a lot of the deeper things that happen. You know, you've already picked up on some of the subtler character hint things that start happening. And I'm not saying like Oda, the author, is an absolute genius and planned all of this down to the very last detail. There's for sure some retconning that happens throughout the story.
Sure.
But like when you're going through this, and if you don't know it as the greatest story ever told, you're just following along and you're being dragged along for the story. So this is just kind of a fun story and this stuff's happening. And then it just starts becoming real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it starts really affecting you. And it's like, because you're just being dragged along with these characters and you've been dragged along with them for so long, you start caring for them. You find their backstory and you almost start to feel like you're part of the crew in a sense. And you're like, and so that's what makes it so special is, and if you look at it as like a whole thing, as the best storytelling story ever told, you know, that might detract from its impact.
And I think that's fair, right? Of like, the beginning of this is just a story. It didn't start off as the greatest story ever told. It takes time to build to that. And I think I'm seeing a lot of that of like, this is the building blocks. And there's still a lot of good stuff. Like we talked about in the last episode of like how he's so very subtly not hitting you over the hammer or hitting you over the head with a hammer of the differences between like the bad guys hit women and hate people and the good guys are good. Like it's a very subtle thing of like, oh yeah, the women aren't given numbers. The men are ranked and given numbers. The men are actually like reduced to numbers of usefulness by contrast of each other. Like this organization hates men. It is reducing men down to numbers in usefulness in contrast to each other. And it hates women. They're not even people. They're just given like little special pet names. Luffy is a crew of everyone's just equal and cool with each other. Like those are small things that really are there for the contrast.
And I wanna touch on this one little piece as well.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be probably a big, you know, it's giving a lot of credit to the author, to Oda. But I feel like part of what makes the grand totality of One Piece a good story is that it takes someone who sees the world in a certain way just telling a story, but that person is telling a story for over 20 years. And so if you imagine somebody who had a very good view on how the world operates and how it is subtle and how oppression can happen and look or all of these other things, but that's not the point of their story, but it's still in there because they're trying to just paint like a whole world. So obviously it's going to be in there. That's where you start getting that subtlety is like again, it's almost like growing up in a sense, where when you start at One Piece, you start at the very beginning. It is just fun, pirates, and all of that. But as you grow up and now you're a teen, you're like, okay, I see some of these things. But then you get even older and you get even older and you start noticing the more subtle aspects that you just kind of glossed over when you were a kid, and you start getting into those and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of crazy. Maybe the government doesn't have my best interest at heart.
What?
Oh no.
Oh, what? Crazy. No, I think that is valid too, of like, this is still a human being's story. The author is a human being who is also growing. You know what I mean? So they're creating a story, and then you said this has been going on for 20 years, been writing for 20 years. They're writing for 20 years, which means they've evolved not only their ability to write and their skill as an author, but also probably their views and stances, because 20 years is a long time to pretend like your stances change. And even if the author's stances change, society around them changes. So like the jokes that were cool in the 90s don't fly now in 2020 something. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so how do you walk? Like, one thing I'm interested in is Sanji's character. Does his character get walked back to try to make up for some of that ness? Like, you think of like Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing anime show.
Mm-hmm.
People debate over if it's an anime or a cartoon or whatever. There is a scene in season 1 where Uncle Iroh, who is everyone's favorite, lets the assassin girl fall on him and pretends to be paralyzed so he can, like, essentially have this girl lay on him. And Zuko's like, you didn't get poisoned. And he opens an eye and, and like gives a little wink and the shh. That is a remnant of like, they were still trying to figure out what to do with him. Is he the pervy old man trope? Is he da-da-da-da? Over time, they make him this wise character, but that's still in the anime. You know what I mean? They still made that episode and then found out where he landed later on. So I'm curious when it comes to Sanji, do they backpedal some of these things? Do they just play with them more? Do they go deeper into it? Do they commit to the bid and they're like, we don't care what's going on with the culture. We're going to hold on to it. You had to turn away from the camera. So I'm just very curious where that goes. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you get back to the questions before I make you.
Oh, man. Okay. We're going to, yeah, that's good. There's good questions. Good questions. Let's continue forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were interested in Sanji not being there. We got sidetracked by me, I believe, talking about just gushing on One Piece. He wasn't in the fight.
Yeah, he was not in the fight at all. That man had his own. He was playing 3D chess, which showed that he can be a pretty smart man. Because he comes to the crew later and is like, here's what I did. I told them that we executed the Straw Hat Pirates, so now they're not looking for us anymore. He got Baroque Works off their back as far as he's concerned. That was a very important move, while also getting information and then getting the big log that gets them off the island now, instead of having to wait 100 years for their log to reset.
Mm-hmm.
They have one that just skips them to where they need to go. So he gets them out of the area. He gets them out of this situation. And he essentially gets all of their enemies off their back. Sanji is shown as an intellectual man, as a smart, well thought out man, which makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that, I mean, yeah, he saved them 100 years. Had a little situation, got them off their backs. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we, along with the crew, leave Little Garden?
I thought it was interesting also the way that it ended. Little Garden, when it comes to the two giants, like kind of vaguely remembering like, oh, well, wasn't this a competition? Because Zoro mentions a competition and it kind of triggers their memory. And we find out those two giant rocks on the island are actually animals that they caught and were comparing with one another, which is what Zoro and Sanji had done like twice on this island, have made a hunting trip. So essentially, and we get a flashback to go with it to explain it better, the two giants have this war that they've been fighting, like this battle every day, fighting for like I don't know, like 100 years they've been fighting it. They don't even remember how long fully. They don't even remember why. But we find out it's because they both were like, oh, who's a better hunter? Someone asked it, and they're like, oh, it's me. No, it's me. They go off and find an animal, each kill it, and then they fight over it for 100 years. And I think it's meant to be this very romantic view of kind of like Viking life, because they're dressed in Viking aesthetic. You know what I mean? There is this idealized version of this Viking life where all they do is eat meat, drink beer, fight, have fun. And so they spent the last 100 years fighting over meat that they hunted and caught, just about who had the bigger one, to the point that they don't even remember. And to me, I was like, that's really sad that like you lost 100 years just squabbling over this thing. You don't even remember why anymore. But they're so happy about this that even after all this, they get back up and start fighting again. They have found purpose in this conflict that they've created with one another. And it's not malicious. It's not evil. It's not hateful. It is genuinely like one giant cries for the other when they think they're dead. Not just because they think they're dead, but because they think that their fight has been tainted by the introduction, by the influence of Baroque Works. You know, the giant's like, you got in the middle of this. This was his and I. This is our thing. So it's very interesting, the painting that is displayed through their conflict. And it's what Usopp loves and adores and falls in love with. He falls in love with this romanticized version of masculinity and fighting and conflict and honor. And Luffy is defending this version of honor that needs not be spoken or explained. And so I'm very interested in kind of like what this could have been. Zoro and Sanji. You know what I mean? Zoro and Sanji hop off the ship and fight about this. If Baroque Works didn't come in and they could get another needle thing that points them to the right place, Sanji and Zoro would be fighting for the next 100 years over who can get the biggest game over and over and over again. Probably for the rest of their lives until they've forgotten why. And it was very interesting of like this sense of honor, this kind of like unspoken thing is what inspired the Giants to live this life that they've enjoyed for 100 years. It's what's inspired Usopp to look after them and admire them. And it's inspired Zoro and Sanji to have this friendship. And for me personally, I'm like, I don't think it's an honorable way to live, but I think the idea that we make meaning, you know what I mean? That life really is meaningless and we've created meaning in the community that we share is actually the core of what this is. Because I don't think the author's intent is to be like, the best life you can live is a life of fighting and violence and comparing meat sizes. I don't think that's their intention. But I do think the idea is supposed to be the simple pleasures, the small things, and letting them matter is what brings joy, because it's what connects Sanji and Zoro, of them both being like, it's an act of pride. It's an act of arrogance. It's an act of personal, defense of like, I can get a bigger catch of game than you. But in the Giants, it is just their way of life and they find joy in it. In Usopp, he sees this honorability in them, putting their lives on the line for bravery, for getting up and fighting for what they believe in every day. Even if what they believe in is dumb, it's a fact that the Giants, Sanji, and Zoro can, at the end of the day, say, this is what I believe in. I'm going to stand up and put my life on the line for it. And I think that's the core of it.
I think I think you're right on that. I feel like that runs even deeper than just the Giants. It's a idealization of having a clear goal, and I am going to achieve my goal no matter what. Like, it's the same. It's what makes Zoro tough, in the idea of, I need to go slash that person but my legs are in the way. So bye legs. I'm going to go slash that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that ideal, that like that amount of drive, and there is something very attractive about that amount of drive, no matter what it's for. It can also, I suppose, be unattractive if that drive is for an ideal that is against what we would strive for. If it was an evil ideal that you had that much drive, it would be scary.
Yeah.
But when it's something more core to your person, it doesn't. It's not about us, you know, and we just admire that in someone. Whether it's I want the best cake ever, I want to eat the best cake. If they're willing to chop their legs off to go get that cake, you're like, oh dang,
like they mean
but
it.
Even further than that, I think it's partially a storytelling method of being able to very clearly identify a character's goals, because they're willing to lose everything else for this one thing. And so now you can know this character's serious about this.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's this thing about battle shonen that reminds me of theater, which, yeah, I know. But still, the thing about theater is there's the saying, when you want something enough, you talk about it. When words fail you, you sing. When song fails you, you dance. And that's kind of like the way that plays work, right? Especially musicals, specifically is more what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this. It's that idea of I'm going to use a dialogue to explain what I want, and then I'll break out into singing when my want is so great words fail me. And then when even singing the words fail me, I begin to dance. And in anime, there is this idea that words are used to express my desire. I want the best cake ever. And when words fail me, my tenacity and my ability to punch a thing is what comes next. So where the musical will go from speaking to singing to dancing, the battle shonen will go from talking and yelling to fighting. And therefore the battle system is just an expression of the morals of the anime. And so like this conflict of the giants fighting each other, it's not that Usopp loves this life of violence. It's that fighting in the medium of anime is the ultimate expression of want. You know what I mean? When characters are done explaining their sides to each other, they punch each other until someone's side stands. And Usopp looks at that and is like, they're willing to do the fighting. It matters. It's similar to how people in plays watch someone sing their I Want song and they're blown away because everyone in that world understands music is kind of the ultimate expression. Everyone in anime knows, fighting anime knows, fighting is the ultimate expression of want and desire.
You just gave me a very interesting insight into one of the things, again, I know, talking generally, that sets One Piece apart, I think, in its era. So I think, and this is just a thought, I'm working on it. You know, it's not solidified yet, but in the early animes, the drive and striving for what you want is always it's a big thing in all of the battle shonens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think One Piece is one of the first, especially big ones, to where that ideal is seen and exemplified in many characters. So like in Dragon Ball, what's Piccolo's drive? What's his main goal that he's fighting for and will do anything for? Do we know?
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, it kind of like he was an evil character who got beat up and he learned to love over time. But a lot of the times you see Piccolo, it's via fighting. Fighting maybe for Gohan, but you know.
Like what would he die for? Or even in Naruto, you know, like maybe it's a little bit more clearly defined, but like what's Shikamaru's main goal that he would die for?
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like I know Naruto very well. Like Piccolo would die for Gohan, and we see him do it. It's one of the big Dragon Ball Z moments and conflict. Shikamaru is there to pass on, the will of fire, da 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 da. But also, Naruto is very much heavily influenced by One Piece that ran alongside it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like, I'm not saying that in Naruto there are no characters that have clearly defined goals, but like a lot of like what's Sakura's goal, driving force that she's willing to die for. Maybe we find out kind of in one part, or Sasuke has one that's very clearly defined, but he's kind of the foil to Naruto in a lot of senses. But like, not everyone has that clear goal, but like that is almost One Piece's core theme, is like Luffy goes around and it's like, what do you want?
Yeah,
why don't you go get it?
From episode 1, like he influences a pink-haired guy who also influences the blonde-haired son of the Axan guy. Like, it's very much exactly what you're saying, of that idea of like, everyone's big thing is, what are you willing to die for? What are you willing to put your life in the line for? And other animes kind of have that, but it's less of that's who we are as characters and more of like the revelation of like, oh, you're willing to put your life on the line for this? Whoa, I didn't know you wanted it that bad. Where Luffy just starts off every adventure and he's like, hey, stranger who I've decided is important because you're drawn better than everyone else. What are you dying for? You know what I mean? Like he is like pushing it. Like he's like, I want everyone to be suicidal about something now.
Very much so. So originally, when we started this episode, the plan was to get through the next arc as well. So it turns out this is part 2 of Little Garden.
Yep.
And we are running out. Is there any other final summarizing thoughts for Little Garden?
I will say the way that they get off the island when they're told, just swim straight, don't stop, just go forward. And then they swim forward and there's a fish that's going to eat them, and it does eat them. And then the giants like break their weapons to do this magical swing. What? I feel like so many different like granted, this is an artistic representation, right? My logical brain in the moment was like, you could just tell them, hey, there's going to be a big fish. We'll handle it. Just keep swimming forward. Even if it swallows you, trust us. You had time to say that. There was so much time to say that. So much time. They could have even explained more than that, honestly. But instead, it's this thing that's really popular in Battle Shonen, especially in the 90s, where it's like, there needs to be an unspokenness to things. There's an unspokenness that Luffy has in the giants. There's just this trust of like, they said go forward, so we're going to go forward. Luffy has this strong trust that he just puts in people, even to the point of detriment. If those giants were evil and they're like, go forward no matter what, the Straw Hats just got eaten. That's it. They won. And Luffy the whole time will be fighting anyone who tries to steer the ship in any direction other than forward. And so I'm a little interested in like, will Luffy ever just pick the wrong person to trust? And will it matter? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, if Luffy trusted Baroque Works first, you know what I mean? And they were like, hey, we need to go kill those giants. And then Luffy was like, okay, he would have gone and killed those giants. I don't doubt that I think he would have found a way to kill those giants if he was told. And he would have believed them. I don't think this is the kind of story that anytime soon is going to have Luffy pick the wrong person to trust. So that was the first thing of just like, there is an unspokenness to this world of everyone just kind of doesn't explain anything to each other, but they just like get each other's hearts so much, which I'm like, that's Battle Shonen. You know what I mean? That's part of it. But number 2, what was that red and blue magic blast that broke their, so what is like, do we have magic? Because that was, at least in the anime, that was very clearly like, they did some magic I don't. Those aren't. They didn't eat the red fruit and the blue fruit. They just did that. I don't know what that was. No one explained it.
There might be a little magic.
There, at least.
Maybe.
There should at least be a little magic to explain whatever that was. I'm not saying it wasn't cool or anything. I'm just like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. Which, now that I'm sitting here thinking, I'm kind of like, Usopp wants to be like them. Could Usopp learn how to do that and shoot it out of his little slingshot? Like shoot some magic out of his slingshot? But I doubt we're going back to that island. This feels like an only new islands kind of adventure. But maybe Usopp will find that island and they'll be like, oh, you want to be like a giant. He's like, no, not a giant. I want to be like those guys. Whatever. I don't know. We'll see. That's all I had.
That's fair. So yeah, there definitely is a little bit of magic, and just to give a little taster there, Red Hair Shanks doesn't have a devil fruit, but yet he hangs out with a lot of these very powerful characters. So interesting little tidbit there. And with that, we'll move on to next time. Drum Island, I believe, is where we're going. So stay tuned for our next episode. It should be fun. I hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, we're just going to keep going and see how far we can get. Thanks, everyone. Bye.